But a really cool thing about it too is that it's not just the residents who pay that tax. It's anybody who comes to the city of McKinney. If you're from Nebraska and you're here on vacation and you're shopping in downtown McKinney, you're also paying that half-cent sales tax. So a large portion of our revenue that we use for economic development comes from people outside of McKinney. And that's a cool thing because that doesn't happen in the city. Somebody who lives in Plano doesn't pay property tax, in McKinney unless they're a resident of McKinney. So it's a really cool way to fund economic development, and it's really important for people to know that, when you see the McKinney Economic Development Corporation funding projects and funding initiatives and funding things, we're not using your property tax dollars. Right. Your property tax dollars are still going towards city services, towards police and fire, towards cleaner streets, towards parks and rec, towards all sorts of wonderful things that the city provides to the residents.
Hello and welcome to McKinney Momentum, the official podcast by the McKinney Economic Development Corporation. My name is Gajary. I am the marketing manager for the MEDC, and I'm joined today by Peter Tokar, our president.
Morning.
And I'm excited. This is going to be a podcast where we interview local business leaders, community leaders, business owners in McKinney, and it's all about providing value to the viewer and creating a space for us to understand what's going on kind of behind the scenes in McKinney. So I'm glad you're joining us for the very first pilot episode. And Peter, I'm going to dive in. Let's get to know. I want to talk about you and your background. Why don't you tell me the Peter Tokar origin story? Tell me about yourself, kind of what brought you to McKinney, and just give us some background on who Peter is.
Great. Well, I was born. That was the start. Yeah, that's always a good start to every story. So I grew up in a kind of a nomadic family because my dad was in the Navy. So I was born in Michigan, but then we quickly moved from Michigan before I was 1 year old. I came actually down to Dallas, so I'm kind of a Dallas boomerang person, so it just took me 35 years to get back here. But my dad was in the ministry. He was a music minister, and then he decided to continue the family tradition of my grandfather, Peter Sr., was a Navy World War II veteran, and so my dad decided to continue the family legacy. He enlisted in the Navy as a Navy chaplain, and then from there we moved around a lot. So every 3 years, a new spot. So I would say I grew up in the U.S. We never had any international deployments or anything like that. So I was fortunate in that regard. But we did move around quite a bit. So I claim I grew up in Virginia because we were actually there for 2 duty stations. So I went there through high school and then went to college at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. So I spent a significant amount of my childhood and then into my adulthood in Virginia, and then got my degree in, of all things, graphic design. And obviously, I'm not a graphic designer right now. Things don't work out as you plan sometimes, and I had the unfortunate situation of graduating a couple months after 9/11. So New York was shut down primarily, and pretty much marketing. The status of the U.S. was unknown at that time, so we didn't really nobody was hiring. So I did what every good college kid does. I moved back in with my parents. So at this point, my dad had gotten out of the Navy, and he became a full-time senior pastor at a church in South Florida. And so he's been there now for 35 years. But when I graduated college, I had nowhere to go. I was planning to go to New York. Obviously, that wasn't an option anymore. So I went down to Florida, and I moved back with my parents and started working odd jobs, really, really odd jobs. So my first marketing job was I sold tchotchkes. So, pins with your logoed products, things like that. And while I like that stuff, I don't like selling it. So that I quickly got out of that, and it was a dire time because I could not get a job in marketing anywhere. And I hearkened back to my college days where I worked at Outback Steakhouse. I slang the bloomin' onions and things of that of the world. And I literally looked and said, wow, I made more money as a server in college than I am in a entry-level marketing job in South Florida. And so I literally went back into hospitality. So I went and went to a restaurant that I liked to go patronize, the Hard Rock Cafe. They had one in Fort Lauderdale, and I went there and I applied for a job, and they hired me right on the spot. And I worked and then quickly when they realized that I had a college degree, they put me in the management track. So then I became a manager, and we actually opened up the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida. So it's a really cool property now. I was there for 5 years, but they just added this guitar-shaped hotel that you could see from space. I mean, it's really, really cool product. But I was there for 5 years working in hospitality, and I think everyone in America should work in hospitality for at least a year.
Absolutely.
Because you will never treat your server bad again once you work.
Right. I waited tables for a long time, and it gives you perspective on how to serve people.
It really does.
Yeah.
And so and it's weird because all of the different kind of bouncing ball careers that I had leading up to economic development all helped my eventual economic development career. So it's really strange. But so I was in hospitality. But I was in the casino's a 24-hour-a-day business. Right. So I spent my last 2 years, when I finally decided to get out, I was doing the 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. shift. And if you do that for 2 years, it just turns your life upside down. And it was horrible. So I did what any good professional does. I went back to college. Right. So I went back. I got my master's degree, my MBA in business administration and entrepreneurship, from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale. So I did their 1-year intensive program. Basically 2005 I don't remember much because I went to school full time and I worked full time. So, and I did the 1-year intensive program. So I got it all done in 1 year. And then lo and behold, I needed an internship to graduate from my grad school. And my mom at the time was the president of a chamber of commerce in Miramar and Pembroke Pines, Florida. And I asked her, hey, you're connected in the business community. I need an internship. Can you find me an internship? Or help me find an internship. Right. And she found a paid internship, which was awesome, in all places at the city of Miramar in their economic development department. And she said, got this great internship for you. It's in their economic development department. The director, Gus, he's a great guy. I said, great. What's economic development? She was like, oh, it's really cool. I think you'll like it. Has to do with the business community and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, probably not. But thank you. I'll take it. I need it. So I went into the economic development department as an intern in the city of Miramar. And full circle come back, what did they have me do in the economic development department? I was doing graphic design. So yeah. I was in charge of their community brochures and their, all the different wonderful handouts that you're doing now for the EDC. That's what I was doing for the city of Miramar.
So were you rusty? Did it take some time to kind of get back into design? Because you've been in hospitality and back in school. And so how was that going back into marketing for economic development?
Well, the tools we use in graphic design, as you know, are pretty standard. Yeah. And I still had aspirations of trying to be in design. So I would do design projects on the side for my friends, mostly unpaid. If for my dad's church, I would help do a little bit of design here. My sister ended up being, who also went to Liberty University, ended up being the marketing manager for the church. And so I would help her out with some projects here and there. So I kind of kept up my skills because I like doing design. It's being a creative person. You want to always make sure you're flexing that creative muscle so you don't get. I did a couple band album covers for a couple rockers at Hard Rock, not professionals like the bartender who played guitar on the side. So things like that. So I kept up with my skills. Obviously, I was still a little rusty, but once I got back in there, I was literally doing design full time for them, and then they hired me on staff after my internship. So they liked the stuff that I was doing, and they ended up hiring me. And I worked for them for a year. And really, I credit my economic development career to Gus Zambrano, who was the director of economic development at the city of Miramar. He really took me under his wing and really showed me, yes, the design part of this, the marketing of the community is a part of economic development, but that's one aspect of a multifaceted discipline, which is our profession. And he really showed that to me, and he's one of my mentors of this day. He's a great guy, and he kind of set me up on the economic development track for the rest of my life. I mean, at least to current. So from there, I was fortunate to get the Director of Business Development position for, at the time, it was called the Broward Alliance for Broward County, Florida. Now it's called the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. It's the regional economic development arm for the region of Broward County and the Tri-County region. Then from there, I was recruited out of there to build a economic development department for the town of Davie, Florida, one of the biggest towns. It's still a township in Davie, but it's a very big city right in the middle of Broward County. And then from there, that provided me the opportunity. I decided Florida's great, but I'm done with Florida. Yeah. So, and that was largely motivated by I met who would become my wife, and she said, "There's no way I'm ever living in Florida."
Really?
So I said, "I can look for a job somewhere else."
Yeah.
So she helped motivate me to get out of the hustle and bustle of South Florida.
Right.
And so that's when I got the opportunity in Alpharetta, Georgia. And a great city outside of Atlanta. I was the economic development director there for 7 years before I was recruited away from Georgia to McKinney.
Okay.
So, and that brought me here, and I've been here 5 years now. So,
wow, 5 years.
So it's a crazy journey. You know, what you start out doing is not always what you end up doing, but one of the things along that journey. Obviously, having a background in hospitality for customer service, you know, we're in the customer service business. Every business is in the customer service business, no matter if it's government or you know, Jersey Mike's. Right. Good customer service brings people to the city, brings people to your business. So I think having a background in hospitality really helped, just in general along the way. But also going to school for graphic design, because in some of the smaller cities that I was in. You don't have staff. It's you.
Right.
I was fortunate to intern with the city of Miramar, but I was one of 4 people in the economic development department. And then when I went to Davie, I was 1. And then when I went to Alpharetta, I was 1 and then 2. So you have to wear many hats, and so marketing is part of the job. So that marketing background that I had really was beneficial to getting some of those positions, because I was able to not only run the economic development programming for the city, but also do the economic development marketing for the city as well, instead of having to outsource that, which when in a city budget, which is always constrained, you're always looking to save money. That's a cost savings that I brought to the table to the city. So everything worked out, and I love economic development. I don't really see myself doing anything else.
Yeah, that's a good. So the one reason I wanted to kind of dive into that marketing and design background was because it gives me an interesting framework for how you think. So a lot of economic development has kind of been done the same way, whereas marketing is very innovative, design world is creative, and you kind of balance both of those things. And you said something recently when you spoke at the Venture Dallas conference, I think it was last October, and you said innovation and local government are not two things that often go together, or something I'm paraphrasing.
Innovation and government.
That's true. Can you speak to that? How do you see, maybe specifically with McKinney or just overall, how can we implement more innovative and creative ideas and kind of leveraging that side of your brain into economic development and maybe some real world? I mean, some of this may be a whole other episode talking about the innovation fund and other things we've got going on, but what are some ways you leverage that innovation into a traditionally not innovative space?
Well, first, when you say innovation and government don't go hand in hand, there's reasons behind that. You know, to be innovative means to push the boundaries, to look for new ways to do things, to look for new solutions, new softwares, new technologies, new things. But when you're looking into those new avenues, most of that costs money. It costs money to innovate. It costs money to upgrade your phone, your iPhone. You know, come get a free one, but it's not free. It's $9,000 that you're going to amortize over 25 years for the rest of your life. But anytime you're looking at a new technology, upgrading something, it usually has a cost to it. Governments are some of the most sensitive organizations to cost, because how is it funded? It's funded by taxes. You know, your tax dollars in the city where you live in, you know, that you pay every year, fund government services. And a lot of people don't like to see governments taking risks with their money. They want parks, they want a consistent government, they want clean streets, they want safety, and that's about it. you do anything else outside of that is creative, it's looked at as, is that really the best use of our money? So that's why, typically innovation in government is not, are kind of oxymorons, so to speak. But if you are successful with launching innovation, and you can look for avenues, because not everything costs money, and there's some things that are just simple fixes or little upgrades here, you get a better product. Obviously, with the difference between an iPhone 1 and an iPhone 14, huge difference.
Yeah.
So, or a Samsung Galaxy.
Yeah.
Nope, we're not being paid by Apple.
favorites.
Yeah, no favorites. But the technology it improves things. Right. Innovation improves things, and so I think as everybody's always wants an improved something. Why not government services? Why not parks? Why not economic development? Why not community assets as well? So, in our industry, we economic developers are seen as the change agents for a community. We're the ones bringing in the new developments. We're the ones upgrading things. We're the ones trying to bring in new businesses, new jobs, everything like that. But our profession has been one of the most stagnant professions to innovate ourselves, because, we do it this way and this way works, so why change it? Well, that's the antithesis to innovation. That's complacency. So my challenge is always to look at how can we become more efficient, how can we do our jobs better, and what technologies can we implement to make not only our jobs easier, but make the community better.
And I think sometimes budget becomes the scapegoat. It's not the budget, but to your point, you said it's not always a budget issue. Sometimes you can be creative and innovative and not cost anything extra.
Well, and you mentioned, and it probably is for another episode, but our innovation fund, targeting economic development organizations typically don't target startup businesses, at least not to fund. We all say, yes, we support local small business and everything like that. But when it comes to writing a check to a smaller business or a startup business, that's not really done. And so our innovation fund, which provides the business assistance and grants to startup technologists, has a net benefit to businesses growing in the city and bringing new businesses in the city, but actually costs less than what our traditional programs are. So it's actually, by doing something innovative, we're actually saving money.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And because it's a smaller grant award, when you're trying to recruit a big behemoth corporation like Toyota down the street, which is a great addition to our community and in the region in general, but it's a huge draw of resources to get those types of businesses in. And the more you spend on one, the less you have on the other side, versus breaking a big incentive up into little small grants to help 40 businesses instead of one. Those 40 businesses could be the next Toyota, it could be the next Google, could be, could scale up and grow within your community. So you've actually saved money by being innovative.
Right. I mean, those businesses are starting in garages. Those garages may as well be in McKinney, right?
Right.
So it's a really, really cool idea. And like I said, we'll talk more about that. I'll put the link to the Innovation Fund where people can check that out and get more details. But I want to back up a little bit, because you said government services are funded by taxpayer dollars. Can you break it down how economic development, specifically in McKinney with the CDC and the EDC, how is that funded? What do we do? How do we work with city government but are funded differently? Can you kind of just break that down if someone's listening or watching and doesn't really have a framework for that?
Yeah, and this is having worked, in the Southeast in multiple states, how economic development is funded in Texas is very unique. Because it's not like this in other states. So the Texas legislators set up, the economic development corporations and the community development corporations that a city has, known as the EDC and CDC, are actually special designated not-for-profit entities by the Texas government called Type A and Type B organizations. And they're unique because the funding source, so in a typical government setting, for an economic development department, they are a department of the city, like engineering, like development services, like police and fire. All of those departments within a city are funded by property tax revenue, business property tax revenue collected by the city. That is a typical city department. And that's where a lot of people will come out and say, well, I don't want my tax dollars going towards that project or whatnot. But because of this special way that Texas has set up the Type A and Type B organizations, we are funded by a sales tax. So A half-cent sales tax is leveraged on top of the normal state sales tax that is then redirected and collected by the EDC and CDC, a half-cent each, that is then used that's our sole source of revenue. We don't take any property tax. We are funded solely by that half-cent sales tax. And again, that's very unique because even within Texas, it's unique because in order to get a Type A or Type B organization, the residents have to vote it into existence. So in 1993, which EDC this year is 30 years old. Happy birthday, EDC. In 1993, the voters of McKinney voted for this optional tax. So it was put on the ballot. They voted. They said, yes, we want to add. Actually, it was 2 cents total. You can leverage 2 cents. So 1 cent goes to the city for economic development. Half cent goes to the EDC. Half cent goes to the CDC. And then once the voters voted in, then it starts to collect on all retail. Anything that charges sales tax. It could be business sales. It could be retail sales, restaurants, anything that's their sales tax.
I went down the street and had pizza for lunch yesterday. Mm-hmm. A half cent of the sales tax from that pizza came back into the EDC.
Correct. Yeah. So the state sales tax rate is, I believe, 6.25%. Mm-hmm. If you notice, it's 8.25% on your receipt because that adds in that 2 cents to your sales tax. So that 2 cents again is divided: city 1 cent, half cent EDC, half cent CDC, mm-hmm. and that's on every retail or purchase that involves sales tax. And that is our sole source of funds, which is very unique because unless a Texas city votes into existence this Type A and Type B tax, then they are working in a traditional way, and they have a economic development department that is then funded by general city revenue. Right. So it's really a strength for the cities that choose, or the residents that vote this into existence, the cities who have a supportive residential community that says, yes, we value economic development. We're willing to make this investment alongside the city on all of our purchases in order to making our community better. Mm-hmm. But a really cool thing about it, too, is that it's not just the residents who pay that tax. It's anybody who comes to the city of McKinney. If you're from Nebraska and you're here on vacation and you're shopping in downtown McKinney, you're also paying that half-cent sales tax. So a large portion of our revenue that we use for economic development comes from people outside of McKinney. And that's a cool thing because that doesn't happen in the city. Somebody who lives in Plano doesn't pay property tax, in McKinney unless they're a resident of McKinney. So it's a really cool way to fund economic development. And it's really important for people to know that, when you see the McKinney Economic Development Corporation funding projects and funding initiatives and funding things, we're not using your property tax dollars. Right. Your property tax dollars are still going towards city services, towards police and fire, towards cleaner streets, towards parks and rec, towards all sorts of wonderful things that the city provides to the residents. We are using funds that could be considered an optional tax in the city, because if you really didn't want to have anything, you just simply don't shop or don't, which we don't recommend. Yeah. Definitely keep shopping and dining in McKinney. For sure. But you could, in some realm of reality, you could opt out of that if you wanted to. Sure. Yeah. But if you shop across the street in Allen, then you'll be contributing to the Allen EDC. Correct. If you shop across the street in Frisco, then you'll be contributing to the Frisco EDC. So keep it in McKinney.
Yeah, so. And we'll talk about this, but you're wearing the Byron Nelson logo, and I think we'll talk about that in a further episode. But that's why events like that are so important, because we attract people from all across Texas and even the U.S., and they're spending their tax dollars here in McKinney, which is then contributing to that cycle. And we're incentivized to make McKinney better and grow McKinney. It kind of creates a cycle there. It's really, really cool concept. And so I want to wrap things up with just a few rapid fire questions. I purposefully didn't prepare you for these because I just want to hear off the cuff. And we'll kind of dive into some of these just quick. Just first thing comes to mind. Don't think about it too much. Rapid fire. Best meal you ever ate?
Barcelona, at this restaurant called Acorno. It's an Argentinian Spanish fusion restaurant in Barcelona, and it is one of the best pieces of grass-fed steak I've ever had in my life.
Wow. Okay.
It's amazing. Okay. And they have these peppers called padron peppers, which in the U.S. we call them shishito peppers. Oh, yeah. But they're cousins. Okay. So the Spanish version of the shishito is the padron pepper, and they do them the same. They fry them, and you eat all their delicious. Oh yeah, delicious.
Wow. I think you maybe already answered this, but what was your first job?
First job ever?
Yeah.
Or professionally?
Ever.
I cut grass.
Okay.
12 years old.
Wow.
I cut 2 of my neighbors' lawns for an astounding $5.
Jeez. Will you come do mine for that same rate?
No, absolutely not.
What time of day are you most productive?
At night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. I'm a night owl. Mornings are not my jam.
Yeah.
And I think there's science to support this. I think I read an article somewhere. I'm pretty sure it is. Google can confirm, but they say that you're not, and whoever they are, but they say that you should not make any important decisions until 4 hours after you wake up in the morning.
Oh.
Because your brain is not functioning at its optimal potential until 4 hours after you wake up. It may be 3, I'm not sure, but there's a period of time after you wake up that you should not make any critical, like you shouldn't wake up at 8 a.m. and file your taxes.
Right.
Or, well, maybe you can do that, but or make any critical life decisions, before. You should let your mind wake up, because it's we'll call it 2 to 4 hours after you wake up, when your mind is actually operating at its most efficient.
Okay, I did not know that. So it's interesting. That's really cool. If you're stuck on a desert island, you can take 3 movies. What are they?
3 movies. Oh, geez.
Alternatively, we could also answer with books.
That's so hard. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yes.
This is a weird one, but I have to watch it every time it's on TV. Tron Legacy.
Oh, yeah.
Just the visually and the music. It's just every time it comes on TV, I end up watching the whole thing.
The one is Jeff Bridges, right?
Yeah, but the newer one, the 2010 one.
Yeah.
The thing that they just launched at Disney, the Tron Light Cycle ride, inspired from that movie. And a third one, oh man, I don't know, maybe John Wick. It never gets old.
Yeah, we'll keep it. Okay. And then bucket list travel destination.
Machu Picchu.
Okay. Yeah.
Never been to South America. I've always wanted to go.
Yeah.
I've been a lot of places in the world, but I've never been to South America. And Machu Picchu is one of the things I want to do on my bucket list.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you could spend an hour with anyone, living or dead, real or fictional, who would it be?
Oof. So many choices. I think I would love to spend an hour with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Because the guy's hilarious, and I think my dry sense of humor I think we'd hit it off. So Ryan, if you're watching,
come on, Ryan,
hit me up, man.
He's also like a business tycoon.
Yeah.
He's got like a ton of cool stuff in the pipe. So that's awesome. Well, Peter, thanks for joining me and for doing this. And I remember you hired me. I think we interviewed in February 2022. You said building a studio space, and I want the marketing person to finish it out. So glad that we got this done. And
yeah,
doing
it looks great.
And it's cool to have this kind of unique opportunity, again, innovation in this space to get maybe educate some folks and get some people in tune with what we're doing that may not fully be aware of what economic development is or what even is going on in our backyard in McKinney. So thanks for kind of showing some of that and telling us about you. And if you're watching, would love if you would like and subscribe and tune in wherever you watch these videos or listen to audio. Share it, and we're going to keep these coming. This is just the first of many, and we're excited to kind of show you what is happening in McKinney with all the momentum here. So thanks for watching.